New Zealand is a country that seemingly has it all. In this series, I'll be taking you along every step of the way as we explore the best this country has to offer via road, rail, trail, bike, bus and boat. I'll be explaining its geology, wildlife and history, reviewing its many attractions and offering tips and advice for your own travels to this enchanting land. This second episode is slightly different and very special to me, dedicated to the Hobbiton Movie Set, reviewing in detail the whole tour experience as a massive fan of The Lord of the Rings. As dramatic as it sounds, it's hard to put into words just how much the Lord of the Rings movies have influenced my life. The tale of epic adventure first made me want to travel to far-off places and beautiful landscapes. The stark imagery of industry versus nature installed a very strong sense of environmentalism, whilst hours upon hours of my childhood spent repeatedly poring over the behind-the-scenes documentaries led to my fascination with filmmaking and eventually a career pursuing it. All three of these values still hold true for me today, probably more apparent than ever in my YouTube content. So coming to New Zealand and Hobbiton in particular was like a pilgrimage of sorts for me. Today's a day I've been waiting for since I was a child. We are finally going to be visiting the Hobbiton Movie Set where Lord of the Rings was filmed. Yesterday I was preparing by listening to the Lord of the Rings soundtrack whilst we drove through the rolling green hills here. Last night I was like a kid before Christmas, and this morning I've got everyone up early making sure we're all getting out on time. I'm unbelievably excited and cannot wait to go over that hill and into the Shire. As a little backstory, in the late 90s, an extensive aerial search led director Peter Jackson and his location scouts to Alexander Farm. Its lush, rolling green hills were a perfect fit for his movie adaptation of the Shire, as described in J.R.R. Tolkien's books. In particular, our tall pine tree and grassy hill overlooking a small lake, surrounded by untouched land as far as the eye could see, with no power lines, roads, or any other modern developments. That pine would become the party tree, and the hill Bilbo's Bag End, with many other temporary hobbit holes built into the surrounding landscape for the filming of The Lord of the Rings. Naturally, after filming concluded, tours of the partially deconstructed set quickly became popular, and so when the filmmakers returned for the Hobbit trilogy a decade later, they extended and permanently built Hobbiton, the Mill, and the Green Dragon Inn in all its current glory. We've arrived at Shiz Rest, which is where the cafe and shop and stuff are before you depart on your tour at your tour time. I am so nervous right now because I'm just so excited. Whilst it could maybe be themed slightly better, Shiz Rest is nice enough. The refreshments are fairly priced, and it offers a good transition from the current world to Middle Earth. During peak summer months, it's pretty essential to book in advance, and so at your allotted time you queue up to board your group's coach to Hobbiton. The short ride slowly builds your anticipation with an introduction from Peter Jackson, as well as clips from the movies and that iconic musical score by Howard Shore. Hobbiton is nestled into the hills, so up until this point you still haven't had any real glimpse of it. The reveal is done very well, entering as Gandalf first did in the Fellowship of the Ring, and first seeing Hobbiton in its entirety stretch out before you all the way up to Bag End. As such a big fan, this truly is a special moment, and straight away you are almost overwhelmed by both the vast scale and tiny details of it all. From here, your group are slowly guided around Hobbiton, stopping for photo opportunities and details about key points, working your way up to Bagshot Row and Bilbo's iconic front door, before making your way down to the party field, Samwise Gamgee's home, and then around the lake for a complimentary drink at the Green Dragon Inn. Whilst I already knew nearly everything one could about the production of the movies, what still surprised me was the scale. This wasn't just a couple of hobbit holes, but an entire village of 44 homes, with a pond here, a full vegetable garden there, fully working props, and of course the party field. There is a trail around the entire lake to the mill, stone bridge and green dragon, and wherever you look there are small details to be found. Every hobbit hole tells a story, whether the inhabitant makes cheese or honey, catches fish, or just enjoys a game of chess. And on top of this incredible detail, what really sets Hobbiton apart from other movie tours is that this is a living, breathing world. There is a team of gardeners maintaining all the plants, veg and animal life. You will spot ducks, sheep, butterflies and bees, laundry on the lines, and even smoke blowing out of the chimneys. It is genuinely like walking into Middle-earth, and at any moment you expect a hobbit to come wandering out of their hole. To account for the different scales whilst filming, some of these holes are human scale and some are hobbit, so you can both marvel at their tiny size and then pretend to be a halfling yourself. To be honest, before going I did have some reservations about the commercialisation of it all, as, after all, it is a huge money-making tourist attraction. Of course, it is touristy, but it is tourism done well, with love and attention put into the whole experience. You can tell the entire place is made and continues to be run by genuinely enthusiastic people. Instead of employing anyone as tour guides, they source fans from around the world who are just begging for their nerdy knowledge to be tested. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw me there in a few years doing the same. Likewise, they could have just rebranded some standard beer or got a sponsor for the complimentary drink. But they are in fact locally brewed by the movie set itself, and all four of the options, a dark and an amber ale, an apple cider and a non-alcoholic ginger beer, were actually all really good. So much so that we brought some of our own in the gift shop.
Very good.
Really
So
good.
good.
Really good.
They're all really good and a good choice as well.
Ginger beer was nice.
I only wish you had the option to spend more time at the Green Dragon and buy further rounds so you could properly relax in the sun by the lake overlooking Hobbiton for a while. But understandably, they need to get you back on the right bus, and I can imagine that situation would probably end up with a very crowded Green Dragon singing Hobbit songs because people like me would never leave. The timing of it all is probably the only thing I would have liked to have seen tried differently. It would be great if there were 2 tours available, the standard one for non-fans and a longer one for us fanatics that really want to spend time investigating it all. Whilst I never felt particularly rushed and there was a generous amount of time allocated at each spot, there was obviously a difference between those who had never seen the films and were happy to move on, compared to me always at the back being dragged along. Given it would be hard to implement a 2-tour system because of the one-way route around Hobbiton, they do seem to be striking a good balance between those differing levels of interest. If you do want an extra special experience, then the evening banquet option offers a tour at dusk, followed by a meal in the Green Dragon, and finally a lantern-lit stroll back through Hobbiton. It won't surprise you that I had an incredible experience at Hobbiton. Whilst that is partly due to being a huge fan, this also meant I had much higher expectations. But I'm pleased to say it really did fulfill them. Even Kath's family, the majority of which have never seen any of the films, thoroughly enjoyed the experience. To be transported into a living, breathing Middle-earth was a long-awaited dream come true, and it only felt appropriate to mark that experience with my very own one ring.